Howdy, folks, and welcome to the Daily Coin. My name is Rory, and I have a very special guest on the line today, Mr. Peter Boehringer from goldenzeitenblog.com out of Germany. And we're going to be discussing the German gold repatriation efforts, among other topics. Peter, how you doing this morning?
Doing fine, Rory. Thank you for having me and for your interest in our topic here.
Well, I certainly appreciate you taking time out of your busy day. I know you're working on a book, and that's going to be released in German in April, and then it will be hopefully released in English later on this year. And I wanted to just jump right in and ask you about what happened yesterday, as far as there was an article that came out. I first read it on goldcore.com about the Bundesbank acquiring 120 tons of gold, and then a few hours later you sent out a communique saying, well, that's not exactly right. And if you would kind of clear the air for us and let us know what's actually happening with the 120 tons that was supposedly repatriated yesterday.
Well, what is correct is that we had an official press release from German Bundesbank, the custodian of the people's gold, the German people's gold, and they have their sub-custodians, as I would call them, at the Federal Reserve, the Bank of England, and Banque de France, for historical reasons, also for some economic historical reasons. The gold, you should know, had never been in Germany, had never ever been in Germany. Wow. It had been acquired in the 1950s and 60s in New York and London, and had stayed there initially for military reasons because we had the Cold War, and but since 1990, that reason is basically gone, and we that is our initiative. I co-founded Repatriate Our Gold. We have been fighting for 4 or 5 years now to actually bring gold home physically. And this is not an easy task, I can tell you. But we have had some successes. Everything we know about the whereabouts of the German gold, tonnages, locations, status, or alleged status, we know just because we put public pressure on Bundesbank. Started in 2011, and it took 2 years of heavy lobbying to actually bring about the initial partial repatriation scheme the Bundesbank announced in 2013, January of 2013. They committed themselves to bring back 700 tons to Germany by end 2020. For 8 years, for 700 tons. We already have a little of our gold in Germany after 2020, and this is the official plan. Germany would have half of its gold in Germany. The other 50% are to remain abroad for good. Bundesbank officially says we need it there to trade in the case of a monetary crisis, which is just ridiculous because it's exactly then that you do not want to trade.
Right.
but anyway, yesterday, and this is not the first release, we have received the official 2014 repatriation numbers. And Bundesbank, not to our surprise, but to quite a few people's surprise, has officially announced that they brought back 120 tons in 2014, 85 of which from New York, the Fed, and other 45 tons from Paris. So this is the official announcement we've had yesterday. And I have written an article, and it's not the first one, where I put a few question marks behind that official release. First of all, there is no there's no proof whatsoever that a transport from either New York or Paris has taken place at all. It would be very easy to disprove us here for Bundesbank. They just would have to show us auditing records, transport records. The gold was partially melted. I'm going into that a little later. There's no record whatsoever. There's no photos, no video footage, no bar lists, neither from now destroyed, because melted down bars from New York, nor from newly cast bars now in Frankfurt. So everything is obscure here. But still, to start with the positive, in 2013, when Bundesbank started its repatriation, they only brought back 37 tons, and only 5 tons from those 37 came from New York. Now it's 85 a year later, so that's better, and it's definitely already a result from heavy criticism the Bundesbank got both from us and even from the mainstream media for only bringing back 5 tons in 2013.
Right.
So something has changed. They had to come up with an impressive number this year. I mean, it's relatively impressive, but my main point is they have to prove it. But I'm saying relatively impressive because even at this pace, and we're now 2 years in the repatriation process, on average, Bundesbank has brought back 78 tons now in 2013 and 14. If they continue to repatriate at that pace, and we don't have no guarantee for that, they would still take 30 years to repatriate all of our gold. 2,200 tons are now remaining officially abroad.
Wow.
So, and 30 tons is definitely too long. We're already probably in the 2 monetary systems from now, 30 years from now. Yeah, that's polemic now.
Yeah, that's unacceptable, I would think. A 30-year timeline. I mean, the first question that was thrown out, 2 years ago when everything was announced that they were going to repatriate around 700 tons, that why is it going to take 7 years? And now what you're saying is based on what's actually happened, and we're looking at 30 years, which is a 6-fold or a 5-fold increase almost. Mm-hmm. And that's, wow. And
well, part of the reason is they only want to bring back 700 tons, and we want to see all of our remaining 2,200 tons abroad, to see them in Germany. So there's a difference in objectives. And so our criticism is not only the speed, but it's also the volume. We want it all. The Bundesbank does not want to send back all of the gold home. And thirdly, it's the transparency issue. As I already said, we have no proof for actual transports. And then there's this very special issue, and I would like to spend a minute on the remelting and recasting of those bars that came from New York. Officially, Bundesbank says the bulk of the 85 tons that allegedly came from New York in 2014 had to be melted down and recast into new bars that are allegedly LGD compliant, London Good Delivery Standard compliant. And this is the same explanation, in inverted commas, that Bundesbank already gave in 2013, and which was not plausible and not credible already at the time. There is, in my opinion, no real reason to recast those bars, and especially no reason to do it in complete obscurity and secrecy without any proof. And there really is no proof, and it would be so easy to have an external auditor actually at least stamp a piece of paper confirming that. But they don't. To the opposite, they said and this is a quote, Bundesbank says, we used the expertise of the Bank of International Settlements in Basel, Switzerland, to bring about either the transport or the remelting or the random sampling of those bars. They don't give a lot of details. I just had a call before we have our call now. I just had a call from a journalist in Washington, D.C., who had called Bundesbank itself and asked, why did you have to use the expertise of the BIS? And he did not even get an official explanation beyond what we had in the press release yesterday. Wow. So there's no explanation for that, and there's no reason for that. I mean, we all know, and probably a lot of your listeners know, that the BIS is the central bank of central banks. They did a lot of coordination for decades between central banks all over the world, also and especially in gold-related matters. So this is suspicious, to say the least, and it definitely is unnecessary. There's no reason. A lot of private gold trading companies deliver, transport, melt down gold every day all over the world, and nobody ever needs the expertise of the BIS.
Well, just the fact that the BIS has their hand in it, that raises a lot of questions. That's a major red flag to me, right there.
It's same for me. But basically, officially, I'm not saying that something is wrong here. Officially, from our initiative, But what I'm saying is it is not plausible, it is not necessary, and please disprove us. Please, Bundesbank, disprove us, show us that our doubts and that we weird conspiracy theorists are wrong. It's so easy to show us a little proof. It's very easy to do
Very
that,
easy.
but they don't.
Yeah, and if the BIS did in fact have a hand in lending their quote expertise, then why don't they have documentation regarding where the gold came from and who melted it and who recast it and who shipped it? They should have all of that information readily available.
If the story is true at all, if a transport and a melting and recasting process has taken place at all, which we have no proof, then there should be documentation. But at this stage, Bundesbank always says, oh yes, we have all the documentation, we have all the bar lists. They told us that 4 years ago already, in our very first, when our initiative started out, when we were in direct contact with them. They claimed to have all the documentation, but they would never give that out. And this is just not right. We are the owners. Bundesbank is just a custodian. This is the law here in Germany, and I'm sure it's the same all over the world. Bundesbank is not the official owner of these bars.
Right. It belongs to the people, just like you pointed out, all over the world. It's not just like what's here supposedly in Fort Knox and in the other Federal Reserve system in the United States. I mean, that gold does not belong to the Federal Reserve or the United States Treasury. It belongs to the people of the United States. That is my gold, and I haven't been able to see or get any documentation the same as you in Germany. We haven't been able to see anything. We have not since in the early 1950s was the last audit, which is ridiculous. I mean,
in my upcoming book, I have a complete chapter, more than 100 pages, on the international gold audit and repatriation initiatives. We're not the first one, and we're not the last one.
No.
We are one of the most important ones now.
Yes.
We're not the first one. The first one I have in my book is actually Ron Paul's campaign in 2000, starting out in 2009, audit the Fed. Obviously, you have no repatriation plan problem in the US, but you have an audit problem too. You have a transparency problem, definitely. I mean, you mentioned the Eisenhower time audit of 1953, I think. Then there was a show for US journalists in 1974 at Fort Knox. And that was more or less it. After that, we had a few more so-called audits I read about in the US press. But it's exactly the same. Here you get some information in the media from the New York Fed that everything is in order and that's it. And there's no proof or evidence is ever given. That was the first initiative. Then we had, at the same time when we started out, we had Venezuela. They were one of the very few countries who actually succeeded under Chavez to bring back a little of their gold. We had our campaign starting out in 2011. Then we had Switzerland more or less at the same time. We have some auditing efforts from the British people. Now Austria is a very hot area. They are about to repatriate. The Netherlands have in 2014 now repatriated. We had Mexico already in 2011 or 12, a person called Mr. Barba. He was a very early activist, not yet successful, but he's now also getting some traction again. Just yesterday I saw him on another US news channel. We have France, the opposition leader Marine Le Pen, a very nationalistic figure, is about to demand repatriation. Belgium has repatriated. We have Poland, Italy, Australia, Azerbaijan. These are all developments from the last 2 or 3 years, and this train is definitely about to start now.
That sounds awesome. I didn't realize that there was that many countries.
Few people are, not even here in Germany, and that's why and I think I'm the first one to actually have them collected all. Please wait for my book on this one.
Yes, if you don't mind, Peter, give that list of countries once again that is actually looking to repatriate right now.
Right now?
Yes.
Well,
France,
it's a bit
and Germany.
I know that many countries have demanded, many people from many countries have already demanded transparency for many decades. But I started the list with Ron Paul's initiative, Audit the Fed, in 2009. Then we had Venezuela in 2011. We had us in 2011, Germany. Switzerland 2011-12, England started out in 2011, Austria 2012, and still ongoing. The Netherlands 2014, France 14, Belgium 14, Mexico, I'd say either 2011, but that was hardly visible then, but it's ongoing now. Poland 13, Italy, Australia, Azerbaijan, that was all in 2013. And I'm not sure if I got them all.
Wow.
The book is not yet printed.
Well, that's an unbelievable. Mexico is, as you are well aware, is our neighbor. I mean,
just imagine
I
a
no
gold and silver friendly country as Mexico is storing its gold at the Bank of England. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
But that's what they do.
Oh, well, let's change gears here real quick because we've got a very important vote coming up on Sunday with the Greeks in Greece, and the Syriza party. It appears that they may actually win, and if they do, there's going to be some pretty big implications in light of what's happened, with Switzerland just recently unpegging from the euro. And what do you see as the implications of the Greeks leaving the euro and the impact, more importantly, on Germany's economy and the euro as a currency?
There are a few angles to that question. What I call real economy angle is Greece is not too important. They only have 2 or 3% of European GDP. So one could say, just let them go. Let them leave the euro if they're not happy there, which we should have done in 2010,
yes,
April 2010, when Greece already was suffering under a too strong euro. They were not competitive any longer, and they had to be rescued by the European Union and the ECB already in 2010 for the first time. In the meantime, we have had 3 rescue packages for Greece, and not only Greece. We have had the so-called European Financial Stability Facility in 2010, with the European Stability Mechanism in 2012. That's all facilities between 100 and 1,000 billion euros. We have a few other so-called rescue mechanisms, and I'm positive that even if Syriza, the leftists, win in this Sunday in Greece, Greece will not be allowed to leave the euro, not because Greece is so important, but because of the signal that would send to the rest of the world.
Yes.
The very next minute after the leaving of Greece, Italian bonds, I believe, would fall like a stone. Nobody would sell them buy them anymore. Spain, France, exactly the same thing. And the only ultimate buyer left would be the European Central Bank itself, which is already buying, I believe, in between 40 or 80% of newly emitted bonds of those countries. Jeez. So I believe the European Union and Mr. Draghi, the boss there, has already announced the so-called OMT program. They're about outright monetary transactions. They are about to buy basically all bonds that are not sellable or marketable in the open market. And this is really the bulk of it. European bonds, with the exception of Germany and a few other countries, are managed by the ECB like it is a centrally planned socialist agency, monetary agency. And this is already the case. And if Greece left, I believe that process would become uncontrollable, which it ultimately will become. But we're not yet there. So don't expect Greece to leave next Sunday.
Okay. And that leads me to how do you think that the Greek citizenry is going to react?
That's a good question. I mean, the Greek citizens, on the one hand, are suffering the most. The euro is definitely too high for them to become competitive again. But this is a 15-year-old problem. When they joined the euro in 2001, they were a little later than the others. They could no longer devalue their currency, the drachma, as they did for decades before that. So that mechanism to remain competitive is gone it has been for 15 years now, and you can't do that forever. There are so uncompetitive now. Well, nobody has a job there anymore.
Right.
I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it's really tough there. It's really
yes.
tough. On the other hand, there's so much money flowing in from Brussels and from the European Central Bank in Frankfurt into Greece that objectively the Greeks are profiting from the euro still. And Syriza, the leftists, they know that. That's why I believe they're not even trying to get out of the euro, just trying to get better credit conditions from the European community, because they are leftists. Ultimately they like the socialist printing press from, even though their own voters are suffering from that. So they will use their negotiation power with the European community and say, we want even better credit conditions. Already, Greece is refinancing itself on average by, I think, bonds with 32 years of duration. And they are paying extremely low interest rates given the status the country is in. They're paying single-digit interest rates, which is ridiculous for a country with that credit risk.
Do you foresee an uprising from the citizenry? Because that's what I see. If the Syriza party isn't voted in,
they already are. There are permanent demonstrations in Athens. I'm not an expert on that, but ultimately this will be the determining factor how long the euro system can last. The people are suffering, but it's not the Syriza leaders who will bring about the leaving the euro. It's really the people themselves.
Okay. All right, and with the Swiss, they depegged the other just this past week from the euro. And
yes.
What impact do you see this? What impact is this going to have on the euro and other currencies from your perspective?
Result from this is a complete loss of credibility of the central banks worldwide, because the Swiss National Bank had defended rhetorically that peg for 3.5 years to the very last second. Only 2 or 3 days before the depegging, they still said we will use whatever means we have. We will whatever it costs. We will defend that peg. And 2 days later, they abandoned it. I mean, that was official. That was in the American press too. Mr. Jordan, the boss of Swiss National Bank, got a lot of trouble there. But the mistake was not the depegging last Thursday. The mistake was to start this central planning currency policy 3.5 years ago.
And the Swiss National Bank president defended their position vehemently during the Swiss gold initiative.
Oh yeah, that's important too.
Huge.
That's important too. Basically, he even officially said one of our reasons for saying to our people, our Swiss people, please say no for the Swiss repatriation, gold repatriation initiative, is that we can no longer defend or uphold our Swiss franc peg, and this is important for our export industry and whatever he mentioned.
Yes.
And only 8 or 9, or maybe 12 weeks later, he's abandoning it even without the gold. So this is a further blow to his credibility. And yes. I have a feeling he will have to step down anytime this year, which we don't know. But, yes. But it was not his fault. The fault was made by his predecessor in 2011. I actually applauded him for doing that in my blog.
Oh, and one last thing I want to ask you about, Peter, then I'll let you get back to your afternoon. How do you see this year being for gold? Is this going to be a good year? Are we going to remain like we've been the last 3 years with the gold market, or what do you see happening with it?
Well, I've been doing this gold business for more than 15 years now, and I have become cautious making short-term predictions. But I would agree that fear is coming back into the markets. People and even the professional financial people are starting to realize that everything is artificial here. Everything depends on the central bank's ability to QE and to further QE and to QE 1000 to even print more money. And we've just been talking about that, credibility of central banks is decreasing.
Yes.
Then there are possibilities to further promote their false money, as I call it, paper money, credit money, fiat money, is decreasing too. And this automatically is positive for gold. In Europe, we have that very special situation that the Eurozone has the Greek risk. It has the Mediterranean risk in general. So we had a good start in 2015 with the gold price. It was even better in euro terms, calculated in euros, for our own reasons here. I believe we will have a good year, but it's going to be a very volatile year. The powers to be of the central banks, they continue to defend their fake money. And well, don't forget their ability to manipulate, and that's a different story. A long story is still there. But it's all about confidence. It's all about confidence. That's why websites like yours and
yours
and mine, we have to continue to tell the truth, the monetary truth, which means automatically undermines the undeserved credibility the central banks still have.
Yeah, they are rapidly losing the narrative, in my opinion, rapidly. And like you pointed out, with the depegging, that was a huge blow to their credibility. And we're seeing, prices, I call it the exchange rate for gold, exploding all over the world, not in U.S. dollars, but in pound sterling, and in the euro, and the yen, and the Russian ruble, and the Indian rupee. I mean, it's just exploding. I mean, and that's what I see.
That has already happened. Just look at the gold price in rubles last year. I mean, it increased by almost 100%.
Yes,
that's what gold does. I mean, it doesn't do a lot. It just remains, and that's us keep our purchasing power, and that's all it's there for.
Well, I won't take up any more of your time, Peter. And we've been speaking with Peter Boehringer of GuldenZeitenBlog.com out of Germany, and he is the architect of the German repatriation movement, and I greatly appreciate all your time today.
Thank you very much for having me, Rory, and looking forward to doing another talk maybe later this year.
Yes, I'll ring you back in just a few weeks, and we'll catch up and see where we're at.
All right. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for all your time.